Good morning. It is Tuesday. Well, good morning for me. Good afternoon for you wonderful people on the other side of the world. The team lists have literally just come out. We have got all our graphics ready to bring you all the latest on all the team news and give you our tips and picks for the round as well. As ever, Luke is here to help me go through all the teams and give out our tips. How are you doing, mate?
Yeah, mate, not too bad. It's a beautiful city day here in Sydney, New South Wales. We've got the cup of tea ready. We've got the notebook for putting down our tips and bets when I go 3-3 this week. We're going in. It's going to be a good day. How are you?
I am very good, mate. Yeah, as you mentioned, I am currently 3-2 up on the head-to-head. Scraped it last week with the 50-50s. Hoping you don't get square this week. But with that, then we jump straight into the first game. So we are into Thursday's opener, and that is the Eels against the Tigers. The Eels bring back some very noticeable talent as well as a couple changes to the bench. The most noticeable inclusion is, of course, Mitchell Moses back in that 7 jersey after he bowed out a few rounds ago with a calf injury. He's going to be instrumental for me. Ferguson named, as well as Ryan Matterson as well. They both missed last week with a couple knocks between them, and it looks like the 28-year-old debutant Andy Davey managed to impress as he's earned himself the 14 shirt. How are you feeling about this one?
Yeah, look, it's good to have Mitch back. As much as Jay Field impressed during his time in the number 7, the thing that I kept pointing out is he can only pass one way. And Manly were more than happy to load up their right side defence and let Field run that way. And as a result, we've dropped off the top of the ladder, have my Parramatta Eels, but it's good to have Mitch back. Ryan Matheson, a huge inclusion this week. Should be good to go with a little bit of a thumb injury. As you mentioned, Fergo back. He's overdue for a try. I don't know if it's going to be this week. Andrew Davey, a really solid debut for him. Only played 28 minutes, but got the try assist for the last try of the game against Manly. He's looking to bring on the impact. As for the Tigers, it looks like Luke Garner is out with Michael Cheekham coming into the second row as the only change there. What do you reckon, mate? I've got Parramatta. I think you do too. For me, I'm going with my heart and head here, but even with the Tigers playing as well as they did last week, just can't see it happening.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the edges in particular, Norfoluma and Lawrence going up against Blake and Ferguson, and then on the other side, Mbai and Talau. Talau's a great player. He's shown that he's NRL caliber. But coming up against someone like Micah Sevo, who's in red hot form, you've seen him absolutely blast through the line time and time again, especially when you've got a player like Moses Mbai, who against Souths, you saw him coming in a lot, and it's become somewhat of a defending characteristic of his, where he'll jam in, and that comes from him having a multitude of wingers outside him, because he doesn't have that relationship with his winger yet, where he knows that winger's going to make a tackle. So we're 11 rounds in, he's already had Hoffman, Jennings, and now Talau outside him. For me, Mbaye's just got to show a little bit more defensive trust in his outside man, because otherwise the Eels go down that left side and they pick him apart. Because I'm not the most rugby league switched on person. You know, they've got guys that are on substantial amounts of money that review footage, and they'll have already singled out the fact that Mbaye is going to jump the line. I mean, the Tigers going with Walters and Marshall, going up against a team that's only lost 2 games in their last 10.
Yep.
With a halves pairing that's only realistically got, I don't know, 70 minutes of experience between them as a pairing. It's a big risk, but we've seen it, and Maguire, he's very good at making sure that he is picking the right combinations. When he's often criticised for the amount of overhaul that he does go through, but when he does make those changes, they usually come off. I mean, you then look at the Tigers pack. Aloye still there. Packer is a question mark for me. I don't think he did enough last week. I think his body is showing a lot of signs of aging and wear and tear. But coming up against a younger and more physical Parramatta pack, it's going to be a big ask for him.
Yeah, I'm still slightly confused about the selection of Luke Brooks there in the 16. I don't really think he should be there at all. But in saying that, there's not much coming from the reserves. Ollie Clark, Elijah Taylor, Sean Bloor, and Ollie Seafarth, the 4 reserves for the Tigers. Yeah, look, I'm going Parramatta here. I will say though, because you cannot ever count out a Tigers team coming up against Parramatta. This is a rivalry match. Both teams, I won't say hate each other, but there is a spirited passion to get up over one another. The Tigers always show up against Parramatta. There's always something that happens. Benji, for all we know, could just throw it back to 2005 and have a standout game like he did last week. David Nofoaluma could just freak out, break through a couple of Wanga Blake tackles and go over for a double. You could have the likes of Aloye and Luciano Leilua that try and bust through the substitutes when they do come on and score under the posts. And of course, you can't discredit Harry Grant. The dude's just an absolute freak. So you can't at all discredit the Tigers. In saying that, for my tip or my bet this week for this Eels game, for those that did follow me last week, we broke even. Thanks to the Parramatta game being void with Ferguson being ruled out. So put $35 on, got $35 back. Can't complain with that. I'm going the Eels to win and over 39.5. That particular single hasn't been put up yet, but that should be around $2.40. If you're feeling frisky, the second half has been the highest scoring half in the, in 3 of the last 5. I can't really do math. The first half, opening round at Bankwest last year, obviously Parramatta got off to a scorcher. And then it was back to 2018, 26 points in the first half, 24 in the second half at ANZ. So Eels win over 39.5 for me. The second half is the highest scoring half. If you put them together as a same game multi, you can get them for about 433. I would recommend going a $5 on the Eels and over, and then another $5 on the second half market.
Yeah, so you've jumped on what I was going to go with there. I was thinking second half high scoring. I was having a look at that the other day. But I would say as well, if you're going to go players, then go Michael Jennings to score any time. He's coming up against Mbai. As we mentioned before, he has a habit of jumping in, and if he does miss out on that, Jennings is more than capable and more than fast enough to expose that, especially down a quite inexperienced edge as well. So I am going to go Parramatta, either take them on the line or take them at a -3.5 on a handicap, plus Jennings, as well as the second half, the highest scoring, as you mentioned there, but I'll throw in the handicap there.
All right, Eels at 3.5, currently at $1.46. For those curious, we should say it's $4.47 on Tuesday. Obviously, the odds are going to change by the time you see it. We're only going off what we see right now. And, of course, to cover our butts, gamble responsibly.
So then we move to the next game. So we are now this is our first difference of the week. You've gone Seagulls, I've gone Cowboys. I mean, the Cowboys this week, they've had a coaching change. They've had a slight reshuffle as well. It's nothing too big, but Dejan Arce coming into the 6. He really impressed me last week. Mitch Dunn goes to 14 and Ruben Cotter comes into 17 for the Cowboys. The Seagulls, welcome back. Adam Fadua-Blake. Paseka drops to the bench. I mean, I found it very hard to back against the Seagulls this week. I mean, they're not Parramatta off the top of the ladder. I think that was their best game for a long time, but I can't see them replicating it this week against the Cowboys, who are going to be going through a coaching change. They've had a halves reshuffle. They're still a little off pace in the backs, but I think I see the Cowboys edging this one.
So here's where I agree in some respects and disagree in others. I agree with the fact that Arce was fantastic, very, very impressive, a fantastic effort from him last week. The Cowboys looked much better than what they had in weeks previous. I think, as Paul Green said on NRL 360 last night, they knew last week that this was Green's last season. Obviously, he's gone now. Won't be seeing the season out, but it's a handy. It was a handy performance to have before they do go back home against Manly. And to be fair, I did nearly tip them. This is one of the tougher choices this week because they haven't. There is a coaching change. Teams always seem to fire up. I don't know why, but they always seem to fire up after a coaching change. They always tend to get up. With that being said, I am going Manly just purely on the back line. I've got Manly up 5-2, 6-1 in terms of player potential. You can make an argument for Tabuai-Fidow going over Elliott. That's one of them. And the other one that you potentially could make the argument for is O'Neill over Garrick. For me, that's a really tough one. Garrick, one of the best wingers, I think, in the game at the moment. Justin O'Neill, a solid performer for such a long time. Queensland rep, Australia rep. Yeah, can't knock his career to date. But I just think that Daly Cherry Evans will lead this team around the park. They're going to target Eason and Masters, as every team should. Masters probably had a better game defensively last week, but it's still not up to NRL standard in terms of defense. I wouldn't surprise me if they put Sully right up against Masters and tell him just to run straight. I would not be surprised one iota. There is the potential for Jordan McLean to come back. He's named in the reserves, which I would imagine would see Francis Molo drop to the bench and potentially Gilbert out of the 17. I'm not 100% sure as to how that would work. But even so, Adam Fnell-Blake and Tapau, they're gonna run right through the guts for me. Obviously, it's hard to take down Taumalolo, but you then look at the likes of Joel Thompson, Curtis Sirenan, who had some of their best games this season last week against Parramatta, coming up against Shane Wright and Cohen Hess, who they're not bad players, but I wouldn't say that they're superb standout second rowers. So it is a tough one. Don't get me wrong. It's a tough one. I don't really know where I'm going to go on the tips on this one, so I'm going to throw you on that one first, but I'm going the Seagulls just.
Yeah, so I see this one being low scoring. And the reason that I see it being low scoring is you look at the Seagulls pack, realistically, this one's going to be won in the forwards. Neither team's really got the quality or depth from the edges right now. I mean, Lemuelu, Masters, O'Neill, Felt, coming up against Tafua, Parker, Sully, Garrick. If anyone's going to get over out of them, I think it's probably Moses Sully. Both teams, they're middle teams. They've got some big blokes who are going to punch it up the middle, try to make meters. You've got Adam Fadua-Blake who comes back. He's got to prove himself and win back the fans after his major explosion. Completely inexcusable. No reasoning behind what he did, regardless of whether it was a good call or a bad call. So he's got a lot to prove, especially when he was actually supposed to miss this game, but now he's had a flu shot. He's come back in, proved that he's committed to the side that way. So I'm expecting a big game out of Fanua Blake. I honestly wouldn't surprise me if he got over as well, but I just think that it's going to be a lock-up battle in the middle of the park, just big blokes going at each other, and then a few speedsters trying to get round. I'm thinking that Tabuai-Fidow is probably going to have a decent game out the back. You saw it last week, how quick he can actually accelerate, get off that right foot and get wider players. So I think it's going to be a brutal game. It's going to be a brutal arm wrestle. I anticipate low scoring. I'd say you go under 39.5 on this one. That one's just a gut feeling for me. Just for the reasons that I've disclosed there. And probably Moses Sully or Adim Fanua Blake to score any time for me.
Yeah, look, I'd love to agree with you on the under there. I'm only looking at past performance from between the two teams. I should point out on Sportsbet at the moment, that's what I use. The total for match points is 41.5, so keep that in mind. The lowest out of their last 5 clashes, the lowest score throughout the game has been 38. For whatever reason, these guys just seem to be able to find the try line. In saying that as well, in the last 3 of the last 4 games that Manly have played, it's been 38 or over. As for the Cowboys, 32 points or over in their last 5. If you really want to go all the way back, the lowest total match points in a Cowboys game going back to round 1. Let's see if I can do some math here. This could be very embarrassing. Is last round's performance, 32 points. So if you do want to be a little bit cheeky on the game on a same game multi and throw in an alternative total match points of, we'll say 33.5 at $1.28, you could. I'm not going to touch that. I do like your tip with Moses Sully. He's paying $3.10 on Sportsbet, and that's what I'm going to roll with. Sully anytime.
Yeah, so that's our tips for that one. If I'm honest, this is probably one of the games that I realistically won't touch this week. I will throw on the obligatory 5 on Sully, but yeah, it really could go either way. So take the over-under with a pinch of salt, because, I mean, it could well be that both these teams are equally as awful defensively or equally as brilliant on attack. So with that, we move to the next game. It is the Broncos versus the Storm, and the spinal shake-up that the world has been praying for the Broncos has finally come. It's not come in the circumstances that they'd like, though, as Milford goes to 1, Croft drops out of the 7 jersey into the 6, Dearden comes into 7. I mean, the Broncos are essentially all at sea at this point. They welcome back Tony Stiles, which is fantastic for them. He's a gun out wide, and he's likely probably going to get over this week because he's good at getting around the defenders, really good at putting that fend on and using that strength close to the line. It's just the case of the Broncos getting him that close to the line. Pangai Jr. out of the 8 and into the 12. Flegler goes in at prop. Corey Pakes comes in because Isaac Luke is suspended, regardless of whether he submits an early guilty plea or not. Tyson Gamble comes in. Reece Kennedy also comes in. Teo drops out of the 11 shirt into the 17, and Offa Hengawi takes his place. That is a lot of changes.
Mate, I can hear your gears grinding in your head as you had to try and rattle out basically a new 17 there. As for Melbourne, no changes. There is a potential for Suliasi Vunivalu to come back, probably at the expense of Brenko Lee, and they'll push Moborovsky in at centre. But that is a game day decision, supposedly. Look, I said it last week. I didn't realise that Tessie New was injured, but I did say in the review last week. Go have a look for those who don't believe me, that it wouldn't surprise me if Milford went to fullback to bring Dearden in. I didn't think that they'd play Croft. I had projected that New would be in the 6 and Croft would be out. It is interesting to me, though, and I don't think it's something you mentioned. Tyson Gamble in the 14 hasn't played too many games. Believe he was a Tiger for a hot minute. Only had maybe a handful of games at NRL level, but he's in the 14 as the obligatory utility. Can play hooker, can play half, has had a moment or two at fullback, but nothing of real note. Yeah, look, I mean, this is the gimme. And I hesitate saying that this is a gimme, but we've seen so many teams come and go and have bad weeks and then come back and have good weeks, but the good weeks for Brisbane are still getting thumped. There's no real promise. There's no real future to look forward to. Seabold is officially now under threat, much to the behest of the critics on NRL 360. Four old men arguing at each other with canes and coffee. But yeah, look, I don't want to bag the Broncos out because these guys are playing their guts out. Payne Haas has been superb. Pangai Jr., when he's not suspended, is superb. Pat Carrigan, one of the youngest captains in the competition, one of the underrated locks. Flegler's been great. Corey Pay's been thrown in the deep end. And Gowie still playing pretty well, but it's just not coming together. So again, I'll throw it to you for tips first, because I need to figure out where the alternative Melbourne Storm line is. But I mean, 13 plus is the easy one at $1.40.
Yeah, I mean, you get to a point where you can't even be mad at the Broncos anymore. It's literally you feel sorry for them. They're fielding the side that they can. I think we went through their roster the other day, and I think this is literally their only 17 that is not carrying some sort of knock. And even these players, based on the reports last week of Xavier Coates having a cork up the quad, Farmworth carrying a knock as well. Stagg's just coming back from injury. They are the walking wounded at this point, and they've got to go out there and try and take on a team like the Melbourne Storm, who will just demolish teams. I mean, for me, I'm going to go highest scoring half, second half. You saw it last week against the Titans. The Storm can take a little while to click against those more dogged teams that play without a structure, is the nice way of putting the word disjointed. I think that the Broncos are going to come out with a point to prove early, but fade away towards the end. And the Storm have just got too much quality. It's interesting to see Justin Olam and Brenko Lee swapping sides. Lee was in the 4 last week, Olam in the 3. They've switched the sides around there. So clearly they're going to put Lee against Boyd. That's going to be interesting. So it wouldn't surprise me. Olam against Boyd. It wouldn't surprise me to see Olam getting over, just because he's such an explosive player. So I'm going to say Justin Olam anytime. And I'm not going to throw in another player because that was the mistake I made last week. So I'm just going to go Justin Olam anytime, and highest scoring half being the second half for me.
Yeah, look, I'd love to tell you what he's paying out there. Sportsbet haven't got the tries, well, the anytime try scorers up at the moment, at least not in all markets. We'll have a cheeky geese at same game multi. They're not there either. I do like your bet about the second half. Looking back at the last 5, the second half has been the highest scoring in the last 5 games when these two teams come together. Not necessarily so much so for the Storm in recent weeks. Not in the last 2 weeks. They've split it. But yeah, more often than not, the Storm are a second half team. They will come together. I do like that tip. However, I'm not going to go that. I saw something in one of the gambling groups that I'm in this week, and it could be completely laughable and it could ruin all credibility that I have. All that much credibility that I have. But there's a little bit of money for the Storm at minus 29.5. Now, they beat the Gold Coast last week by 36. They did, the three of the last 5 games against premiership contenders have been close. However, a lot of their games have been against potential premiership contenders. Start of the year against Manly, potential premiership contender. Round 2 against Cronulla, dogged win, but they always struggle against the Sharks. They've played Canberra twice, the Roosters, the Panthers, Newcastle, and Souths. The only other game against a bottom, not even a bottom half side per se, but just a team that we don't think is going to make finals were the New Zealand Warriors 4 weeks ago. The score was 50-6. So against bottom 4 teams, the Storm are currently 92-12 up, and for a minus 29.5 line, it is currently 325. And go on that. I will, I probably will add your second half as well as a secondary bet, just to cover my losses for the best bet. But I do very much like the pick your own line, Storm minus 29.5 at 325. If you were to throw those two in the same game multi for anyone interested, it comes out to $5 on the dot. I'm not saying 29.5 is a gimme. I'm saying it's really good value when you look at the 2 games the Storm have played against really inferior opposition. I should also point out that in 2 of the last 5 games against Brisbane, the Storm have won by 30 plus.
That does sound good. I'm tempted to push the boat out that far. I do like that one. So there we go. We will then move on to our next game. It is the Warriors taking on the Roosters, and although the Warriors have named a lot of their unchanged 17, probably expect that to change. I did think that last week was the week that a lot of their players were going home. But I still see Fosatua, Mamalo, no Parsi though. At this point, the Warriors are literally just trying to see the season out.
Yeah. It's really unfortunate that that's just where it's come to, and I really hope that they're able to get some loan players. But obviously, there's some internal rumblings that, we publicly will come out and say, "Well, we'll do what we can, the best that we can." But it's teams that are starting to push towards finals aren't really wanting to get rid of their top 30 players. So, we'll see about that one. There's not much you can say. There are changes. Pompey is in for Herbert at centre. Jazz Tavanga will start at lock with Hetherington at prop. Adam Blair's gone to the bench with Katoa back into the back row. Carl Loughton out of the 21. Janelle Harris-Tavita and Lachlan Burke come on the bench. While for the Roosters, Orbison will move into the second row, replacing Crichton, who's out with, I believe, an MCL injury.
Yep.
Nat Butcher on the bench with Isaac Liu at lock, Tau Keaho at prop, Collins to the bench. This is another one of it's not what if, but by how much. There really is no need for an analysis. I really, really pray that the Warriors put up a fight this week, because it got real ugly real quick. Against Cronulla. They put up a fight kind of to start, but then just dropped away like flies on a fly zapper. It's just hard to look at this New Zealand side and think they're going to get within 30. never mind push the Roosters for a win. I don't know, mate. I'm not going to touch the pick your own line because the line at the moment is 25.5. And I don't know about that. This very well could be one that I just don't touch. Again, the anytime try scorer markets aren't out yet, but you'd almost have to, just with how badly the Warriors sweep in defense. You could make a very, very strong argument for a Tedesco double, if not a hat trick.
Yeah, I was looking at Kiri. I just think as those big middlemen start to tire, that's when Kiri really comes into his own. He's always on the shoulder. So I'd go Kiri. Like you, there's no value for me in touching the anytime market. If you're going to any value, the pick your own line market. If you're going to find profit there, you've really got to push it out to almost a -40, which the Warriors have it in them to turn up and play. So I think you probably look at Roosters to win both halves, and you look at Luke Keary anytime try scorer. Those would be mine, just because I think the Warriors have the potential to run at least one half close. I think it's usually the first half that the Warriors seem to hold up really well, and then the second half comes and they do ultimately fade away. So yeah, that's my tip. Roosters to win both halves and Keary anytime.
Yeah, look, you could make an argument, like I said, for so many. I'm gonna run with the Tedesco double. I can't tell you the odds at the moment, because Sportsbet are kind of slacking here at the moment. They're not up yet. So Sportsbet, if anyone is at Sportsbet and they're watching, let's go, lads and lasses. We want to find our value tip here. If you really, really just want some dumb, easy gimme money, Roosters 13 plus is $1.22. It's better than most bank interest rates at the moment. But again, no value in that. Like I said with Melbourne Storm last week, no value with big win, little win. Tedesco double, it's what I'm going for. If you want to be cheeky, I would argue Kyle Flanagan anytime try scorer, much with your theory about Luke Keary. Flano just tends to step inside and get himself a cheeky meat pie. So as a secondary bet, if you want to, Kyle Flanagan anytime try scorer.
Okay, then we will move on to the next one then. We are into the Sharks versus the Dragons, and the Sharks make a couple changes. Britton Nakora is out. Talakai comes in on the bench. Wilton comes onto the bench. Dragons, their only enforced change. Sims out, suspended, and Fui Mayona comes into the second row. Host takes what was his spot on the bench last week. You've gone Dragons, I've gone Sharks. Lay down your logic.
Honestly, not much. There really wasn't much logic. You could have flipped it either way. You really could have flipped it either way. I'm going off the fact that the Dragons, in my opinion, have a better forward pack. I think the Dragons will run up the guts a little better. As you mentioned, Rudolph starting at lock for Sorensen with Talakai in the back row for Nakora. I think that they may target Talakai's edge. And I think I've got my lefts and my rights the right way around. If so, it's going to be Tyson Frizzell running at Talakai. So that it just makes the mouth water a little bit. The gut feeling says that Frizzell may go over for a cheeky meat pie. Matt Duffy has been in superb form. There's no two ways about it. Arguably been, and we put him in our top 4 for the team of the year so far. If you haven't seen those posts, scroll down on Facebook. They're right there. Vote for who you think has been the best player as we continue to post those. Duffy's been in great form. The spine is really starting to click. The only issue I have is Cameron McInnes at lock. at the moment, and it's not even an issue per se. It's just that the big body of Hamlin Uele is just going to rumble straight at him and potentially cause a couple of issues in that regard. Look, the only change for the Dragons, Fui Maono in for Tarek Sims, Jacob Host on the bench, and we saw when Fui Maono replaced Sims when he broke his arm, I think it was pre-COVID, he lit it up. So it's a tough one. It's a really, really tough one. I am going Dragons. I do need to look at the betting markets while you give your explanation, but I think I know where I'm going on this one.
Yeah, so for me, you think the Dragons have the stronger pack. I look at the Sharks. I just think that the Sharks have the better pack for me, in my opinion. I mean, Talakai is probably a weak link in that group of Hamlin, ULA, Woods, Talakai, Gray, and Rudolph. They maybe don't have the bench depth the Dragons do. I mean, the Dragons, Merrin, Kerr, Host, Ford, whereas the Sharks, Tracy, Williams, Wilton, Hunt. I would say, though, I do fancy Royce Hunt getting over for a try. That's a big outside chance for me. I just think that the Sharks have been playing a lot better down the middle. Sean Johnson, now he's found his form and seemed to regain his confidence, lighting teams up. Teams are waiting off Johnson again now because before teams were waiting off him because they knew a pass was coming. Now they wait off him because they don't know what he's about to do. The unpredictable X factor of Sean Johnson is truly back, and that comes in. He's top of the Sharks player vote. He's getting close to the top of the Dally M's. He's back, and he does look really good. And the Sharks are very much becoming like the Warriors. Johnson plays well, the Sharks play well. So I think that the forward pack battle goes to the Sharks on this one. But it's a case of when they spread the ball, Katoa, Dugan, Ramey, and Mulatalo, Kennedy out the back as well. I just see the Sharks edging this one. I think it's going to be tight. I don't, by no means is this going to be a Sharks blowout, but I would go Sharks 1-12 for me. And if you are feeling ambitious, I lean towards a Royce Hunt anytime try scorer.
See, I agree that I think there will be a Sharks anytime try scorer, but you could make a very strong argument for Hamlin ULA first try scorer. The logic is, for those who caught the broadcast on Fox Sports last week, Hamlin ULA, when he starts, and he's only started 4 games, I believe, this year, in 3 of those 4 games, he's been the first try scorer. He scored first against the Warriors, he scored first against the Gold Coast, and I believe he scored first against Manly. Manly have a very strong forward pack, and did at the time have a very strong forward pack. The only game out of the last 4 that he hasn't been the first try scorer for was the Panthers Cronulla 80-point extravaganza, in which Brent Naden decided to have himself a field day. So you could make a very strong argument for Hamlin ULA first try scorer. He'll probably be anywhere from about $25 to $30. Again, sports bet, you can't slack in here, folks. But look, this is tough, man. This is really, really, really tough to pick. You could very well make a case for either team 10 or less at $1.83. I will say the Dragons, although they are drifting, they have the 2-point start. I would probably give them a 6.5 at $1.49. That's one I'm definitely going to go for. I don't know about the other one, though. There is a second one I want to place. Where's my cheeky team? Yeah, I'm going to go with my gut on this one. I'm going to say Frizzell anytime try scorer. Should be around $3.50, $4. He's usually running on the inside, but I think he'll come up against Talakai, and from close range, Frizzell at the worst of times is a very hard man to stop. If there is any defensive lapse out there on that, what's Frizzell play? Right edge. he's gonna go over. So I'm going Dragons 6.5. Tyson Frizzell anytime.
Okay, yeah, I do like the Hamlin ULA tip. I'd potentially join you on Hamlin ULA anytime. I think the numbers there would sway me towards thinking that he may be first over. I'd lean towards going anytime on him just for a safety bet, just because the Sharks, they are such an unpredictable team this year. They either play fantastically and every single forward on the team gets a try, or they play absolutely terrible and then Katoa and Ramian get one apiece. That's about the measure of the Sharks season in 2020. So for me, Hamlin ULA or Hunt anytime try scorer, Sharks 1-12, or if you're playing safe, just Sharks on the head-to-head.
Yeah, I do want to point out they did play 14th of June, Dragons 30-16 winners. In that game, it was Hiroti who was playing on the wing for Cronulla as the first try scorer. So, but yeah, look, there's just value in that bet for me with Hamlin ULA. It's worth a cup of coffee. It's at least worth a cup of coffee for a thought.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll leave that one alone then, and we'll go to our next game. So before we started recording, there was a thought process of maybe I will lean towards Souths on this one, just because they were so close last week. But I ultimately changed my mind, and I have gone with the Raiders, as have yourself.
Yeah, you caught me taking a swig of tea there, you cheeky bugger. There's no denying that the Raiders are thin at the moment. We saw that last week. We said it last week, sorry. The Raiders are thin. But to their credit, they go to the SCG for the first time in 30-plus years, and they knock off the arguable premiership favourites. No one saw that coming. Well, no one in their right mind, saw that coming. But even so, that's still only 2 wins in the last 5. But the last 3 losses have been close. 14-6 against Manly, Golden Point loss against Parramatta, 14-20 loss at home against Melbourne. They've been close games. South Sydney made last week look close. They made the scoreline really flat to them, but they have no right to have gone down as 2-point losers. They should have been spanked. It just so happened that Mark Nichols, of all people, decided to spark a comeback, and then Damien Cook nabbed himself a double, screwing us of our multi. Thank you very much, young sir. Still salty about that. The 20-18 loss against Newcastle. I'm not going to lie. In my head, I had Rabbitohs all week. Rabbitohs. And then I look at the team list coming back from work, and a certain Englishman is named in the 21. Mr. Wright, you might know of him. John Bateman. He's a bit of a good player, isn't he?
He is. I had the displeasure of actually coming up against him while he was at West Bowling. At Bradford Dudley Hill, and he's not a nice player to be on the field with if you're not wearing the same colours. So the Raiders, are they potentially rushing Bateman back due to a lack of depth right now? Potentially. Bateman, yes, is not in the fans' good books because he's leaving, but there was a possibility that he'd be leaving. They knew that he'd be leaving in 2022 at very least, but it was a case of he wanted to go home. It works both ways. You see it in the Super League. There's NRL players who plead homesickness, go home, vice versa, but that's by the by right now. So I think that Bateman, if he does play, he always gives his all regardless. He's a frightening competitor. So if he does play, the Raiders definitely, I'd say the Raiders definitely do win just because he lifts. You got the Whitehead, Sutton, Williams, Wigan, Bradford contingent there. I mean, it's going to be close for me. Souths have been very disappointed in their performance last week. If they'd have sparked that comeback 10 minutes earlier, they win that game, hands down. Or alternatively, if they played like that from kickoff, they arguably put 30 points on the Knights. So I do think it worries me that Souths have a point to prove this week, but they are carrying a few injuries. Roberts is gone for the season. Lowe gone for the season. Campbell Graham does come back in, which it's not often that you see a player get injured and they have a stronger replacement waiting in the wings for him. I do think Campbell Graham is that man. Sirenen comes in for Lowe. Sewer is always good. Burgess was great last week, and he's probably got a bit of a point to prove as well, as he feels like he was robbed of a try. He said, and I quote, "I've seen them given." I tend to agree. I also have seen them given, but those are the 50-50s that even out through the course of a season. So, go figure. The Raiders, however, I lean towards the Raiders just because you can't discredit them for winning last week against the Roosters. And I know that I say that while tipping against Manly, but I think that the Raiders have the win this time round, even with a slightly disjointed spine and a couple of injuries. I mean, Valamay comes in on the wing. Souths have still got their two young wingers in Allen and Jackson Paulo. So, yeah, I'm going to go Raiders. Do I go Raiders 1-12 or 13+ is my big question, though.
Yeah, kind of what I'm looking at the moment right now as well. The safe bet for me is Raiders head-to-head, paying $1.50 at the moment. That's what I'll recommend for punters. I do think if the Raiders win, it will be 1-12. Currently paying $3.10 on Sportsbet for some cheeky value there. If you are looking at it that way, the Raiders this year, when they do win, the highest margin they've won by, having a quick look here again, I can't do math to save my life, is 18. They go 18, 14, 16, 8, 6, 4. So you can make an argument for either way. Their largest loss of the season was 16 against Newcastle. I think you could, because again, this honestly could go either way, make a very strong argument for the try bet of either team by 10 or less, paying $1.91. That's probably where I'm going to put the money on this week, if not Raiders head-to-head. But either team, 10 or less. The last two games that they've played, or the two games they played last year, were decided by 6 or less, if you want to be really frisky. But, yeah, either team 10 or less is looking the goods for me.
Okay, then. So, yeah, I'm gonna go Raiders 1-12. And if I looked at that lineup and saw one player to score, I'm going to go Jack Whiten for me. So Jack Whiten anytime, Raiders 1-12. That's how I lean on that one. I'm not going to touch the points over under just because this is such an unpredictable 50-50. So that's where I go with that one. And with that, we move to the next game. The Knights take on the Bulldogs. The Knights will be relieved that they got the win last week, but probably very disappointed that it was as close as it was, especially with how they played in the early stages. The Bulldogs, very much in the same vein, will be very happy with how they started and not too happy with how they finished. They've made a slight change, and that is Brandon Wakeham in the 14 shirt. Avarillo comes in on his return from COVID suspension from the outbreak at the hotel there. Marcelo Montoya goes back to the wing. I mean, the Knights completely unchanged. They're looking good. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. I was really impressed with Tautau Moga last week. Thought that he looked really well, and especially coming up against a Bulldog side that realistically have weaker backs than South Sydney, I would expect maybe Moga to get himself a try, or best. I think the battle in the centres is going to be won by the Knights on both sides. The Bulldogs really are just sort of stripped out there for the time being. I question Wakeham at 14. I don't think the Bulldogs really have the squad depth right now to be messing around with interchange playmakers, just because against the Knights, they've got such a dominant pack as well. Realistically, you need another big body in there to really try and nullify the impact of those Knights forwards. I know that they go with 3 forwards on the bench and Watson is their interchange playmaker, but I don't think you try and match them for play style here, because if you're going to do that, you're going to get burnt ultimately. So I'd say take the Knights on whatever minus they're offering, because I think that they go for the minus and better, probably.
You're taking the Knights at 16.5. Just for the record, that's a big line to be calling blindly. Yeah, look, the thing that I don't get about that Wakeham, I guess selection is the best way to describe it, is that they had Sione Katoa in the 15, who's a hooker. They have the ability, and if a half were to go down, much like it happened last week, Marshall King could go into the 6, and Katoa comes in at the 9, and they don't lose a thing. If anything, they looked okay with Marshall King playing in the halves. They obviously lost the running game of foreign, but I mean, there wasn't a significant difference in their attack. Not that says much about the Bulldogs' attack at the moment. I like your reasoning for the centres. I am going Bradman best, anytime try scorer. That it just screams, give it to me. Potentially going up against Kerrod Holland, who is the definition of a turnstile. If you want to feel a little bit frisky, you could make a very strong argument for Lockie Fitzgibbon to jump over as well. For me, he's just due for a try. He's ready. He's been waiting. I think that they'll catch the Dogs napping on the short side there, and Fitzgibbon will go over. So I'm going to go those two for anytime try scorer. I don't know about your 16.5, mate. I think that's ballsy, to put it politely. The over at 43.5 is tempting. I'm not quite confident enough to touch it, though. Even with the Dogs' track record of high-scoring games, you could argue that the second half probably have more tries. Yeah, look, it's a bit of a tough one outside Bradman and Fitzgibbon for me in terms of finding a tip. So unless you have any others that I think you want to go with.
So you've gone Bradman. I'm going to go Moga. I think last week he was really impressive. He's a big bloke. He's almost Moses Sully-esque in the way that he plays, just barreling over close to the line. I'm going to go Moga anytime with that nice minus 16.5 on the line. Because the reasoning behind that is, if you look at the Bulldogs and you say that their strongest area is their forwards, and you look at the Knights team and they have them beaten to a man in the forwards, then realistically, even if the Knights, whichever way the Knights play, they go down the wings and the edges, the Knights win. They go through the middle, the Knights win. Arguably, if the Knights do go up the middle, there'll be less points. But even if they just use those middlemen, tackles 1 through 3, just to lay a platform and then start looking for the spaces on the edges, they're going to split them wide open. I mean, the Bulldogs are, because, again, they've changed their backline so much, players are so unfamiliar with each other. I mean, Avarillo, Montoya is another new combination, where Tennis Lesniak and Holland have played a little bit together, but you've got to know your centre and your winger. The pair have got to know each other and understand how each other defends, what their defensive characteristics are. Are they someone that's going to jump the line? Because realistically, if your centre or your inside man jumps the line, you've got to go with him, because otherwise there's spaces everywhere. If one man commits out the line, everyone's got to go. And you see that with the likes of Avarillo, who is still figuring out his defence, and Holland as well, which is more just indecision on his part. So, yeah, I'd say the wide men are going to have a good day. The middle men are just going to be used to lay that platform, eat the meters, and get them down the other end of the field. And that's why I think that the Knights are going to go for minus 16.5. And the Bulldogs realistically they're just trying to play keep up for this one.
Yeah, if you just going through the Dogs' schedule, really, a lot of the first try scorer markets are being taken by wingers. So if you base it off that and the fact that out of the last 5 head-to-heads, 4 have come from wingers, you could make a very strong argument for Heimel Hunt or Inari Tuwala to be a first-time try scorer, probably floating around the $8 market. The roughie, if you want to have a cheeky dabble for first try scorer, would be Kurt Mann for me. I think he has a great opportunity to hit that block play around the back and just scream straight through the guts. But, to each their own. So recap, because we kind of just baubled on here. Best, and if it's given any time for me, Matt, you're going Moga anytime, Knights 16.5.
Sounds good to me. And with that, then, we'll get on to the last game of the round. So, changes on both sides. There's a lot of changes in the Panthers side. We start with the Titans, though. Copley comes back into the centres with Sammy going out wide. Jermaine Spry out of the team. No Bo Firma this week. He's replaced by Proctor. The Titans are really coming up against it, and the saving grace realistically is that the Panthers are fielding not a full-strength team, but it's still a team that holds frightening players with a lot of young guns in, and you got to think that the Titans, although they hung with the Storm last week for a little while, you think that it's realistically going to be the same thing again.
Yeah, you'd have to think so. They do lose the passing fullback of Dylan Edwards. Caleb Akins can run for 200 metres every game and not bat an eyelid, but doesn't have the passing game to that of Edwards. So I wouldn't be surprised if after 60 minutes we see May come on for Akins. And it very, very well may be that May is sort of that, maybe that roaming forward in defence, in attack. He is out the back, much like we saw last week. Malachi Watene-Zelezniak back for his first game in a year. Well, over a year now, thanks to COVID. The Titans are improving. You can't deny that the Titans are improving. They are, one of the most improved sides. I won't say they're the improved side, but we said it in the round review. After 25 minutes, you and I were kind of quaking in our boots, thinking, are we going to have to eat our own words here? Obviously, Melbourne just decided to show up in the second half and blow them away. But the Panthers coming in on a, 5-game winning streak, only having the one loss all year, but without a lot of key players, including that of Api Coruscant. They lose a lot there with Mitch Kenny coming in. Still not a bad replacement, mind you, to have there in the 9. I would not be surprised if they target Keegan Hipgrave after his insane performance. Oh, what game was that? That was against the Warriors. He had an absolute shocker against the Storm. The rumor is that he's still battling a little bit of an injury, so I wouldn't be too surprised if they target him, which bodes very well for Big Billy Kickout as an 8-time try scorer. That's going to be one of the tips that I suggest. The other one that I'm going to throw out as a little bit of a haymaker, is that of Mitch Kenny as an anytime try scorer. I really, really like Kenny as a player. If he has an opportunity to dart out of dummy half close, the Titans are known to give away a couple. We saw last week, Brandon Smith Cheese diving over from dummy half for the best bet of the week. I wouldn't be surprised if the same happens here and Mitch Kenny goes over. He'll probably be somewhere in around the $5-6 anytime market. In terms of the Titans, if you feel frisky and want to chuck a Titans player on for any time, it's very hard to argue against Philip Sammy. He'll probably go up against Watene Zelezniak. They'll target his wing early on, trying to keep Mansour out of the game. So Sammy could very well be a good anytime try scorer bet. But the two that I am suggesting, Kickout as the go-to, Mitch Kenny as the roughie, Sammy if you want to throw a Titan in there, the line at 17.5. You could make an argument for the Titans.
Yeah, so I've not thrown anything wild out yet. So it's time to break out some absolute madness. Okay, so I agree that there's going to be one Titans winger on the score sheet, but if they are going to line up as the numbers suggest, I'm going to go Anthony Don anytime, Naden anytime, and Crichton anytime, as well as Panthers to win both halves. So I'm going to use those four up in a same game multi. Naden, sensational form. Crichton, one of the best centres in the comp right now. Brilliant young player, tons of potential. Got a decent amount of reach on him. If you're going by the numbers, Crichton is going to come up against Kelly by the looks of things. So Copley. He's got a decent fend on him. So yeah, I see Don getting over if he does line up against Watene Zelezniak. I see the two Penrith centres getting over as well. Penrith are a wide team. They love to play wide, work the angles, and because they've got so much talent on the edges as well, in not even just the backs, but the second rows that play outside them as well, in Kickout and Martin, it just puts teams in a little bit of indecision. So I'd expect to see those three go across, plus Panthers to win both halves. But that is a very out there. If take the Panthers but both halves, as your gimme, and then if you're feeling frisky, stick those three in, or just one or two of them if you want to play it a little safer. If I was going to say the safer two, it'd be Nade and Crichton. Don is your outside chance because it's about the Titans getting into that position to put Don over.
Very, very good. What would you say is your best bet?
Best bet, I would say you go Panthers to win both halves, and I'm gonna go Naden. Naden anytime.
Naden anytime. Is that your round best bet, or is that just the game?
Oh no, that's just this game. I'm gonna go round best bet. Oh God, let's rack the old brains here. I don't know. I think all my best bets are all the tips that I give.
Mate, if that's the case, then we're struggling. You went 1 for 9 last week on the finances. I at least got us money back. Yeah, look, I think best bet. I'm gonna. Oh yeah, no, I think I should have asked that, knowing what mine's going to be. That would have been a good idea. Yeah, let's go. Best bet. I'm going to give you 2, just because why not? Because I'm making the rules, so I'll break them. That's what the bunker's doing anyway. Best bet. We're going to go the Storm game second half, highest scoring half, and we're going to go with Tedesco anytime try scorer.
Yeah, so I'm gonna go both of my bets on the Storm here. And that's all of them at any time, alongside Storm to win the second half being the highest scoring half.
Now watch as the Storm don't even win.
Oh, don't say that. Don't say that. Well, okay, we have done our best to give you our tips and predictions for how this round is going to go. If you are enjoying the content, leave a like, subscribe to the channel. As this video has been going up all our socials have been popping up along the bottom as well. So go ahead, check us out. We are on all the good platforms. Not TikTok though. We don't touch that TikTok stuff. Thanks for joining us. We will see you later in the week for the round review and let you know how we got on as well. As ever, gamble responsibly. Your finances are at risk as well as ours. So, bet safely, and we will see you next time. Bye.